Welcome to Your Next Stop. This is Juliette Hahn. I am a wife, mom, virtual coach, public speaker, and crazy obsessed dog lover. I am so honored to be able to take you into the life of someone that has followed a passion. Every week, I hope you are as inspired as I am. Welcome to Your Next Stop. Hey guys, so welcome to Your Next Stop. I cannot wait to tell you about my next guest. It's going to be so much fun. Another Clubhouse find, but I am super passionate about this topic, so I cannot wait to introduce Libby Cole. How are you, Libby?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great. So I want you to share your quote, and then I want to get into just what you do, because it's like such a passion of mine.
All right. So my quote is, if you are always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. And that's Maya Angelou. And growing up, my mom used to say, normal is just a setting on the dryer. And so I felt like that was kind of connecting two of my favorite quotes there.
Yes, I love that. And I always say normal is boring. I just think normal is so boring. Like, why do you want to be normal? Who wants to be normal? So I love that. Okay. So my quote is, I get up every morning determined to both change the world and have one hell of a good time. Sometimes this makes planning my day a little bit difficult. And that is E.B. White.
I love it.
Isn't that good?
So good.
Okay, Libby. So tell us your journey. Okay. So you were in higher education. What did you teach? Where were you? Like, how old were you? Did you always want to be a teacher? Like, give us a little background on where you were.
Sure. So I was working in student affairs in higher education. So it was all the extracurricular activities. And I started in leadership development at the College of Charleston, and then got my master's degree in higher ed and counseling and worked with students for about 12 years. And I was just looking for something new to do with my students. And that's when I found the Enneagram. So you're an Ennea fan, right?
Yes, totally. Oh my gosh. Yes. I can't wait to get into this. I totally am.
So I'd heard people talking about it, just like out to dinner, just talking about what's the Enneagram, what type are you? I didn't really know anything about it. So I started digging deeper into it. I ended up getting certified because I'm a type 8, so I don't do anything halfway. So I didn't just learn about it. I actually went and got certified to coach with it. And then like 6 months later, I quit my job and started a business. So here I am.
And that's such an 8. So I think we talked a little bit about this. So I have taken many different tests, and I've taken it many different times. And I am very, very close between a 7 and an 8. So a lot of times I get 8 with the 7 wing, but then I also get 7 with an 8 wing. So I even took like a more in-depth, the Ian Cron, his test, and I was a 7, and they don't do the wings there. So it was very interesting to me because every time I took the test that I take is on, so eccentricenergies.com is the website that I've gone. And every time, pretty much, I'm always a 7 with an 8 wing. But when I say they're like both 98%. So like, I feel like I'm very close. So I'm like curious to hear after you share, what you found in there, like what your thoughts on that are.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So you went, you got certified, you quit your job. Yep. And you quit your job 6 months later and you started this business.
So I work with individuals or couples with coaching. The Enneagram is an amazing tool with relationships. But then I also work with companies who are trying to develop their team and open lines of communication. Maybe you're reconnecting right now and, just need a morale booster. And, with COVID and everything that's happened over the last year, people have realized that we can do all of this virtually. And so I'm working with people around the world, and it's been a wild ride.
That is amazing. Okay. So give us a little, so everyone that's like on there being like, what are they talking about? What is the Enneagram? Can you give us a little bit of the background of what that is?
Sure. So the Enneagram is an archetype for human character. So it's a structure that utilizes 9 types. So if you've ever heard somebody say, I'm a type 2 or I'm a type 8, they're talking about the Enneagram. It's used for self-knowledge and inner work, but it's all about why we do what we do, not what. So Julia, I'm just going to touch on the quiz thing real quick. I think that quizzes are a great way to be introduced to the Enneagram, but a test cannot tell you you your true type because it's about the motivation behind what we do. So it's a great way to take a test, and
Love
maybe
that.
it gives you your top 2 to 3, but it's not going to tell you for certain what your type is. So your journey between a 7 and an 8 is one that I went on also. When I first got into this, I was trying to decide, am I a 7 or am I an 8? And I had to do that inner work to really decide what my core type was. And my husband, who's a 3, was actually able to help hold that mirror up to me and say, this is really true for you. And that kind of opened my eyes. But my favorite free quiz is truity.com. And that's a good starting point. But again, don't just believe if you're 99% a type 3 that that's what you are.
Can you spell that? But then I also have to go back because my husband's also a type 3, which they
Oh,
always say
really?
8s, 7, 8s, and 3s are like a really good match. Right? Yeah.
It is.
Isn't that funny? So how do you spell that, the website where you say,
Truity. It's truity.com. And I've taken just about all of the tests out there, just, through research for my business. And that is the free one that I think is just a really great starting point. Look at those top 2 to 3, do the work, listen to some podcasts, read some books, follow some Instagram accounts, and then really decide for yourself what your core type is.
yes, and please share with your, like right now, so people can go to your Instagram. What is your Instagram account?
Sure. So my account is at Enneagram to Expand. So my company is Expand Coaching and Consulting. It's all about growth and expanding beyond yesterday. So my Instagram is Enneagram to Expand.
I love that. And can you spell it? Because I am dyslexic. So if I was listening, I'd be like, oh my gosh, how do you even spell it? So I always have my guests spell everything so people can just write it down and so they don't have to keep rewinding back.
And you will see so many different spellings of the word Enneagram also. But Enneagram to Expand is ENNEAGRAMTOEXPAND.
Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, so I would like you just to take like a quick. So as I said, I've gone through. So this will be kind of fun. So people like that know me, like I have the fun side. Like there's definitely the 7, but there's some things about the 7 that didn't resonate with me. Like I didn't live in fairy tale land when I was growing up. I wasn't like that, and I know that's probably like just a little thing, but that always stuck to my head. I was like, no, I didn't have like imaginary friends. I'm very much. And I don't want to say black or white, but kind of like, and that I felt like was more of an 8. But when I'm in not a great spot, I don't know that I go to the 8 side, but there's been 2 times in my life that I have gone to the 8 side. So can you explain a little bit about like when people are doing that? And that's what I found so interesting about the Enneagram versus the Myers-Briggs. So that I want you to also go into like, if you know the knowledge of that, like what the difference is. But first, I would like you to explain a little bit about like how the Enneagram looks at, as you said, like how you react to things, not what do you react. So can you give us a little bit more information on that?
Absolutely. And just to your point, I was in leadership development. So I've done the Myers-Briggs, I've done the DISC, I've done the True Colors, I've done Strengths Quest, all of them. And there's a reason that I decided to put all my eggs in the Enneagram basket, because I truly believe that it goes beyond any of that. A lot of those things are about how you show up. They're about your leadership style, your personality type. But the Enneagram is about your true core energy that you approach the world with. And again, those motivations. So you're looking at your core fears, your core desires, your core motivations. And that is so different than looking at your Myers-Briggs type. It's just a different way of thinking about it. And another thing that I love about the Enneagram, when you're talking about your stress and your growth, it's actually organized in a very structural way, and you're connected to different types. So it's not pigeonholing you into your type. You can, be a wing, like you're talking about the 8-wing 7 or the 7-wing 8. The numbers on either side of your type flavor your type. You go to a different type in stress or in growth, and it's a very intentional connection there. So those things can help you decide your type also. But it is such an amazing structure that just looks a little differently than some of those other pieces that are talking about your personality or your leadership.
Right, which I love that. So when you're in, and so I'm going to have like just ask you a question to kind of give people like a little bit of a visual. So if you're an Enneagram 8 right?
Mhm.
When you are stressed, what number do you go towards?
So you go towards a 5. So my stress path as an 8 is going to a 5. The 5 is the observing investigator. They're a little more pulled back, withdrawn. So if I get very stressed or I'm very triggered by something, I pull back. Was triggered in an environment not too long ago, and I just went outside and sat on the porch. And that's when my husband knows something is wrong, because otherwise I'm very engaged. I'm very outgoing. And so it's that idea that I pull back and I overthink. So the 5 is cerebral. It's very logical. And so I make lists, or I, color code in an Excel spreadsheet, those kinds of things when I'm in that stress place.
Okay, so that's interesting. So what does a 7 do when they're in stress?
So the 7 in stress is going to go to the 1. And so the 1 is the moral reformer. They're often called a perfectionist. And so I have 2 best friends that are 7s, and both of them like deep clean when they're stressed. So they go into this like, I need to clean the baseboards. And sometimes that's to avoid what's going on. You'll do these things that it's like you're going to organize the junk drawer, or you're going to just become very perfectionistic on something. So the 7 goes to the 1. So are either of those relating to you more?
No. See, that's where I need to dive, because no, I am not a perfectionist in the least. And when I go to stress, I definitely have like short of a temper. So I get like more like short and in my head. And so I'm trying to think if like when you describe the 5, I might withdraw, but I don't know that it's that you can tell. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so if my husband, like, I don't know if my husband would be like, okay, she's stressed. He knows I'm stressed because I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and my mood completely changes. Like I'm very fun loving. I'm very like light. I have a lot of energy. And when I'm stressed, I'm more of like a dictator. Like, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. This needs to be done.
Well, that could be true of a 1
I probably
also.
do a little bit of like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, right. So like, I don't go clean drawers. I wish I could clean drawers. I definitely don't do that. But so that's interesting. Okay. So can you also, so let's go through the numbers really quick. I know I was like, that would be nice if I like in my stress mode did something productive. I don't think I do anything productive in my stress mode. So if you could let's take us through the numbers really quickly. So like if you're a 1, where do you go in stress?
Sure. So a 1 is the moral reformer. Like we just talked about, they have the need to be good, right, and balanced. They see what's wrong. They want to fix it. And 1s are also said to have a really strong inner critic. And so, again, some of that dictator, as you said, could be part of that 1 coming through. And the 1 in stress is going to go to the 4, which is the romantic individualist. And so it might be a creative outlet, just something that really, they can be more introverted also, but it's going to something that you need to re-energize and have that creative outlet. So that's the 1.
Okay,
the
cool.
2
Yep.
is the supportive helper. And they are the type of person who thinks that they have to give in order to be loved. And so they really have a need to be needed. They are afraid that they're not loved for who they are, but for what they give other people. So they definitely have that worth is on their sleeve. They're the person that's going to show up with a casserole, and they are going to just really be there for other people.
Right. Okay. So where does the 2 go for when they're in a bad place?
So the type 2 in stress is going to go to the 8. So we've already talked a little bit about the 8, but it's the challenger. So a lot of times they're going to come from a more like aggressive stance. They might be a little combative when they're leaning into the stress.
Oh, you know what? So when you said the type 2, but you know what's funny? When you said the type 2, so I've always had a helping sense, but not to like when I've taken these tests. But when I go to, say what the stress of the 2 is, where they go when they're stressed, because I think that's what I do.
See, the 2 goes to 8. And so there is a connection there, but that also means that the 8 actually goes to 2 in growth. So when you're a healthy 8, then you lean into those helper tendencies. So that could be more where you're leaning rather than vice versa.
Yes, that's what it is. So I'm leaning towards, right. So I'm an 8 and I lean towards the right. Cause when I'm in, and that's what I've always thought. Like, so some of the things about the 8 that I was like, well, I don't think I do that. But I feel like I've been in a pretty good spot my whole life. Do you know what I'm saying? Yes, I've had bumps and things, but for the most part, I know when I'm not in a good spot and I can turn it around just because I'm very self-aware and always have been. So that makes sense. Okay. So the 3, where does the 3 go when they're not in a good spot?
Yep, the 3 is the achiever. They have that need to succeed. They're very adaptive, but when they are in a stressful spot, they're going to go towards the 9. And some of those 9 tendencies that they might pick up is that the 9 is known for numbing out. And so that might be that a 3 who's usually like, go, 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 if they don't feel like they're being successful or they're in a situation that feels triggering to them, then they might just stop doing anything. And they may watch TV or they may eat a lot of food, like anything to numb their feelings is where they're going to go in that stress path.
That's very interesting. That especially since you said that about like both of our husbands are 3s. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so where does the 4 go?
So the 4, again, is the romantic individualist. They're very creative. They have a need to be unique. When they're in a stressful place, they go to the 2. And so the 2, again, has a lot of their self-worth tied up in what they give and who they are. And a 4 can sometimes feel like they're misunderstood or that they're not being appreciated for who they are. And some of that comes from that stress path moving towards the 2.
Got it. Okay. So now we're on 6.
5.
Or no, 5.
Yep. So the 5 is the observing investigator.
5.
We talked about it a little bit because of the connection that we have to the 5 as an 8. But the 5s have a need to understand. They really want to gift knowledge to others. So if you're the kind of person that starts a sentence with, have you read this book? Or do you know this author? Or have you listened to that podcast? Then you might be a 5. And in points of stress, the 5 goes to the 7. And the 7 is that entertaining enthusiast. And so they might just like disconnect and run off on an adventure, or they might really focus on being happy and they don't want any negative information coming in. So the 5, who typically is very realistic and very embedded in facts, can just abandon that completely when they're in a stressful place.
Interesting. Okay. So then the 6, where does the 6 go?
The 6 is the questioning loyalist, and they typically have a need to be secure and stable. They're said to have this inner committee that's always talking to them. What if, what now, what then? And when they're in that stressful place, they go to the 3. So that's the successful achiever. They're going to lean into being more of a shapeshifter and kind of work in the room and doing what needs to be done in order to create that stability that they want.
Wow. Okay. So we already went through the 7 and 8. So what about the 9? When the 9's not in a good spot, where do they go?
So the 9, again, is that mediator. They really want to avoid conflict, and they go to the 6 in times of stress. And that might be, having anxiety about what's going on, if people are not being loyal to them, or if they are engaging in some kind of conflict, then they can go into that place where they're thinking, what if, what now, what can I do? Because they just want to get back to a place where they have harmony.
So that's so cool. And you know what I love how you said, and this is what I love about the test, like the Enneagram as well, is that everything is kind of intertwined. So it's like there's certain things that are not like complete, like when you talk about some things, I'm like, oh, there's a tiny bit of me in there, or oh, I see that in my son or my daughter, or so those kind of things are so fascinating. Can you take us through now, and you can go very quickly, I won't pause and stop you, but just like with each number, starting with 1, where they go when they're in a good spot?
Sure. So it's going to be the opposite of all of that I just said. And so when the 1 is in a good spot, they're going to go to the 7. So they're going to be fun and adventurous. When the 2 is in a good spot, they're going to go to a 4. They can really tap into their creativity. When a 3 is in a good spot, they're going to go to the 6, and they're going to be really loyal to their friends and family and the organizations around them. When a 4 is in a good spot, they're going to go to the 1, and they might really tap into the ethics and the integrity of a 1. When a 5 is in a good spot, they're going to go to the 8. They can call upon that strong leadership and, kind of standing up for themselves. When a 6 is in a good spot, they're going to go to a 9. They're going to be a lot more focused on cohesion and bringing people together. When a 7's in a good spot, they're going to a 5. They're really going to focus on knowledge and think of things logically. When an 8's in a good spot, they're going to a 2. So again, that's where, as an 8, we are giving and thinking about other people and being really caring and considerate. And then when a 9's in a good spot, they're going to a 3. And that would be that they are very focused on achieving and just being better than they were yesterday. So that was rapid fire. Those are the growth paths for the Enneagram.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So tell me again, where the 7 goes when they're in a good spot? What number do they go?
So the 7 in a good spots go into the 5.
Yeah, so that's what I would need to look a little bit more into, because definitely when I'm in a good spot, I feel like I'm more of an 8 and I go into the 2. And that's where it's like so interesting, because just the whole kind of thinking about it. And that's where, that's why it's so important, as you said, to listen to books, to listen to podcasts, to find a coach like yourself, because this is going to help you in so many outlets, not just your business life, but your personal life. You as a parent, you as a friend, a sister, a mom, whatever it is. And that's what I love about the Enneagram so much, because it is really such a positive thing to really work on yourself. And it's really not one of those things where it's so hard. Some people are so intimidated by therapy, right? They're so intimidated by therapy. And this is a good start to really use it. And sometimes you really find what you're good at and what you are okay, whoa, I'm in a bad spot. I need to figure this out. And so I think the self-awareness of the Enneagram really just helps with that. That's why I fell in love with it and just became fascinated with it. So can you let everyone know again, Libby, where they can find you?
Absolutely. And I just want to add on to Juliet before I do that. I think coaching is so forward thinking. It's so growth focused. And I think the Enneagram as a tool has much more transformation than people even realize. And it's opening your eyes and then being intentional about how you show up in the world, right? And what you can learn. I mean, I always say, I think the Enneagram gave me permission that I never knew that I needed in order to pursue my business and in order to be a better parent and in order to, be stronger in relationships with each other. So I just want to tack on, because you made some great points there, but you can find me on Instagram at Enneagram to Expand. Again, my company is Expand Coaching and Consulting, and my website is expandcnc.com. So all of those ways, I love to just talk the Enneagram, do a free consultation and just see how our energies drive, and then see if there's something that I can do to help you grow and help you expand beyond yesterday and be a better person.
I love that, Libby. I love that so much. Thank you so much for coming on. So what I'm doing now, that if you guys noticed when I started the podcast, I said your next stop, which is the new name, because this is the focus. I found a passion. I found a passion in interviewing people about what they love and how they turned it into a career. So I love that Libby did exactly that. So the thing that I'm going to ask, because Next Stop Crazy Town is still so dear to my heart. So I'm going to ask a question at the end of each episode, and it's going to be in one sentence. What does Crazy Town mean to you?
Going back to my quote, it is that it's not normal, and that we all have a little bit of that crazy town in us, and we just need to embrace that to be our fullest and truest selves.
I love that. So people always ask me, Crazy Town, what is Crazy Town to me? Is lovable, fun, energy, just sometimes chaos, but just the family unit of just being together, and it's really the energy that we all bring to the table. And that's what Crazy Town means to me. So Libby, I love what you said. Guys, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review. You know where to find us. Your next stop is the place to go. Please go to the Apple or Spotify, iHeartRadio. We are all over. You guys can find us, and you can also find us at nextstopcrazytown.com. And please, again, the way you go and get this podcast out is rate, review, and share. And go please follow Libby. And seriously, guys, you want to find out a little bit more about your Enneagram number. So go and reach out to Libby so you can learn more about yourself. All right, guys, stay tuned to next week for the next woman that is on that has followed a passion and her hobby and has made it into a career. So thank you again, Libby.
Thank you.
I hope you liked this episode of Your Next Stop. Please subscribe to my channel, share with your friends, and join in each week.